Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Monday, December 2nd. It is a victory Monday in Pittsburgh as the Pittsburgh Steelers were 44-38 winners over the Cincinnati Bengals in an insane game at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati that saw neither team decide to play any defense except for when the defense was scoring touchdowns, and the Steelers winning an unlikely shootout, getting the second best passing performance out of 36-year-old quarterback Russell Wilson's career against the Bengals. Did not have that on the bingo card coming into this one. I understood that the Cincinnati defense was not playing very well, and boy, did they play even worse than they had been playing. But what I want to talk to you about today is what I talked to you about last week, and that's Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. There were a lot of people when we talked last week about Arthur Smith, the job he's done as Steelers offensive coordinator, the potential of him possibly taking the North Carolina job, which, by the way, we can permanently squash. Has been well reported that he will not accept that job, even though North Carolina was interested, as was obvious from the beginning. If you've been following at all, coaches' preferences for pro or college ball in the modern era. But there were a lot of people when that news broke last week that North Carolina was interested in him that were like, good, fine, go, see ya. Don't let the door hit you. Yikes. The Steelers scored 44 points. They scored 37 of those on offense. And most of the credit for that offensive production belongs to, one, the Cincinnati Bengals playing possibly the worst game of defense I've ever seen from an NFL team, and two, Arthur Smith. Like, this was, like, it's so funny to look at this game and see Russell. This is the second highest passing total, 414 yards, second highest passing total of Russell Wilson's career. And to say, like, not to say that he was bad, but like, this was not some kind of dominant quarterbacking performance where he was running around back there making plays, where he was just uncorking deep ball after deep ball. And like, if you watch that game and sort of were maybe coming in and out, like, you would have never thought he had 400 yards. Like, it was not that kind of game. Nor did any of the Steelers receivers do anything individually that was spectacular. I mean, George Pickens had a couple nice plays, but like, we've seen George Pickens make unbelievable, otherworldly plays, things that we can't believe possibly happened. None of that occurred in this game. Like, Pat Freiermuth looked good, but he just looked like the player we know him to be. Calvin Austin made one big play. No one on this team went out and physically dominated or physically elevated their game to something that we have not regularly seen from them over the course of this season or their career. But the team went out and had its first 500-yard game since 2018, and its first 500-yard game in a win since way longer than that. Usually when you have big point totals, big yard totals, it's games you're trailing. Remember that game the Steelers had against the Chargers in 21 where Ben tried to bring him back and he had all those yards. The Cleveland playoff game when they're losing from the gun and had to try to come back all game and he threw the ball 60 times or something like that. Steelers were winning, I mean, from the second quarter on. What a game by Arthur Smith. And I think it finally showed what the Steelers offense can be like when they're doing everything they're capable of doing. We've seen good performances like against the Jets, but they started slow. We've seen some good performances where they were dominant until the 20-yard line and then they struggled in the red zone. We've seen some good performances that were tempered in other ways. There's no tempering this. This is one of the best offensive football games of the 2024 NFL season, period. Forget the Pittsburgh Steelers. And their players did not get any better. It's because Arthur Smith did an outstanding job of looking at the way the Ravens and the Browns have played them the last 2 weeks, which was different than say the Commanders had and the Jets and the Giants and those teams previous. And also that way that those two teams, like the Browns broke tendency to play more cover 2 against the Steelers. The Bengals, that is their tendency. So what had been working the last 2 weeks against the Steelers is what the Bengals wanted to do anyway. And so you knew they were going to do it, right? It's like the Bengals are like, what their kryptonite is our strength. We've got it. We've got it right here. This is what we want to do anyway. They haven't figured out how to beat this. We're just going to do nothing but this all game. And the Steelers just torched it. And they torched it schematically. Like they did not just beat them up physically. I mean, they ran the ball well. There's no question about that. But like to hear Jermaine Pratt of the Bengals linebacker after the game, like he talked a lot of smack. He guaranteed a win before the game. And then people were asking about him like, well, did you miss a bunch of tackles? And he was like, not really. And then the reporters are like, well, were people just out of position? And he goes, kind of. And the reporters are just, they keep it. Well, then how did you give up 44 points to Pittsburgh Steelers if you didn't miss a ton of tackles and people weren't out of position? Because your coach got bamboozled. Now, he can't say that. He may not have even figured that out yet until he went back and watched the tape. But that's how that happens. If you don't miss a lot of tackles and people aren't screwing up their assignments and you still give up 44 points, your coach got torched. That's what happened to the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was Arthur Smith doing the torching. And I think it's really funny to me that people were ready to let this guy sail on out of here 5 days ago, and he just had the best game for a Steelers offensive coordinator 15 years, maybe more. Like, this is not an overwhelmingly talented offense. It's just not. Russell Wilson is 36. There should be no reason why he should be anywhere near his career high in passing. His skills have obviously degraded since then. Yet, there he was doing it. Like, Arthur Smith gets the lion's share of the credit for that incredible offensive performance that I didn't think these Steelers had in them, even though I did acknowledge that I thought Smith had been doing a good job, let alone the people that was saying he was the problem. And yeah, I just think the timing of that was hilarious, and I appreciate the irony, certainly. I had a lot of topics in my head before I got to this one. So we're going to have a busy day here. Back with Smitty with more at 6 p.m. for Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'll get to some of them there. If you've got some topics you want me to hit, leave them in the comments, and I will. But we're on to the Browns, another AFC North battle. And this one, I think the Steelers are going to be really, really thirsty for. So we're looking forward to an exciting week of practice and maybe some trash talk. I think we might be able to see some of that this week as well. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you a little bit later today. Enjoy.